I mean, I get chills when I say that one. You see, and you want to come up with fun things that you can say, meaningful things you can say to yourself. Look at those eyes. You have the best eyes in the world. Or sometimes I'll look into the mirror and I'll say, you're one of the smartest women I know, if I'm in the middle of doing business. Or I'll think it if I'm on an interview or something. You're one of the smartest women I know. Or, I always have your back. I'm here for you. And if you do it enough, what starts to happen is the mirror becomes a friend instead of an enemy. And the person in that mirror becomes your most powerful friend instead of an enemy.
The reason I start you with I love you, I really, really love you, it's because it's the hardest thing to say. And if you can break through that, and it took you a week, so
yes.
That's not bad at all. Yes. Just saying it whenever she could. She started to feel, you know, a connection, and by
yes.
2 weeks her life was shifting, and by the end of the month things were looking differently.
Yes.
So if you can do that, and especially the first thing in the morning is the hardest time, because we all look at not at our best. Mm-hmm. But you know, if you think about the fact that you're talking to a little child inside, mm-hmm. you're not talking to that adult who's going to be so glamorous in an hour or something. You're talking to the little one. Yes. It's sort of easier to do. And once you can break through that first big thing where you feel stupid, things will start to move rather quickly. And then you get into it and you can do the sort of affirmations she's
yes.
talking about. You can have all sorts of things you want to say, you know. And you know, I will look at myself and say, you look fantastic, kid. And sometimes I'll say, you know, you may not be as tight and taut as you used to be, but you're fabulous. You're absolutely wonderful.
Yes.
We want to be our own cheerleader. We want the things that we say to ourselves support us and love us and make us feel good or make us feel silly. You know, you're a hot potato. Just make ourselves giggle, make it easier.
Yes.
Make life wonderful.
Years ago, I remember I was having a conversation with Debbie Ford, who's yes. another wonderful author, and I said to her, you know, sometimes I wish when I'm up on stage and I'm speaking that I felt freer. She said, what do you mean? I said, well, I feel like there's a part of me that I don't express fully because I'm afraid of what other people might think, or I'm too concerned with what the audience thinks. And she said to me, that's funny. Actually, you're not concerned with what the audience thinks. What you're concerned with is what you think. She said, what that tells me is, chances are when you get off stage, you start replaying in your mind all of the things you said that you think you shouldn't have said, or the mistakes that you made. And she said, until you know that you have your own back, you'll never be able to be fully yourself in the world. And that was an amazing moment for me. And then when we added Louise's mirror work, this is what happens. When you build a relationship with yourself using the mirror, you become far less afraid in the world. You know that regardless of what, I mean, I remember one time, she's talking to herself right now in the mirror. I want to know what you're saying. I remember one time in the States, I was doing the Oprah Winfrey show. I was on the show. And we took a break, and during the break, Oprah and I were talking about something. And when we came back on, when the show went live again, Oprah turned to me and said, Cheryl, tell the audience what you were just saying during the break. That piece was really important. And I went like this. And in that moment, I'm thinking, I can't remember what I was saying. That was so brilliant.
No,
I mean, I just lost my train of thought. Because I was in the now, which you really are when you're on television or when you're up on stage. I was in the now. And fortunately, she was wonderful. She said, oh, let me tell you what she said. And she picked right up and covered my behind. But I remember that day when I walked off the set, that having built a strong relationship with myself, I walked off the set and said, girl, I got your back. You were fantastic. Instead of, I can't believe that you lost your train of thought and went blank in front of millions of people. Like, that's what I would have done before, but this time it was, no, 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 no. You were great. And that's what the mirror work
Yes,
does.
I've learned to make, mistakes teaching lessons. I remember once being in Scandinavia, and I was speaking in Sweden, and I had the terror of my life. I occasionally get what I call a sensitive throat, and I can go into a coughing fit that would scare everyone in the room. So when that happens, I get out of the room as fast as I can, or I get away from things. And I'm talking to an audience larger than this, and I feel my throat strangle. And I'm about to have my coughing fit. And I couldn't stop it in time. I had to go into it, but I got off as soon as I could. And then when I came back, when I could finally speak again, I used it as a lesson, and I said to him, this is the terror of my life, and I've done it in front of you, and I'm alive, and, and just because we're a teacher doesn't mean we're immune from things. Doesn't mean we have our own demons, that we are not clever enough or willing enough to really release. We all have that. You mustn't think we're perfect, or we never have a problem. But I just want to say one other thing about mirrors. Went a long, long, long time ago when I used to do private sessions. I started with a mirror, and after a man once picked up that mirror when I had him to look at himself, and he flung it across the room and broke it. I thought, oh dear. So I went out and I got a dressing mirror, a door mirror. I got a door mirror, and I put it against a wall, and I had a big box of Kleenex. And somewhere in that session, I would say, let's go to the mirror. And we would go and sit down on the floor in front of the mirror, because it's hard to get up. That's the whole reason I had it there. But I had the big mirror and lots of Kleenex. And you weren't looking at yourself in this, you were looking at yourself whole. And and it's not only just saying you love yourself, but do your affirmations in front of a mirror. Do forgiveness in front of a mirror. If you have somebody you need to forgive, do it in front of a mirror. And get yourself if you have a big mirror, sit down in front of it, because you won't run away. You can't. It's too hard to get up and move. And you can sit there and you can cry, but you'll go through it, whatever it is, and it'll be fast. And once I put that mirror on the floor, it was amazing the results I got with people. When I first started working with people individually, we'd work with your health, we'd work with your money, we'd work with your relationships, we'd work with your creativity or lack of it. And then one day I discovered that if I could get you to work in the mirror and start working on loving yourself, we didn't have to work on the other shit. Because this was the central issue. The central issue is always that there's a part of ourselves that doesn't love who we are. We don't feel that we're worthy. If I asked a show of hands of how many people in this room really believe they're not good enough, half the hands would go up. Because there's a message within almost all of us that comes from early childhood, even if you had good parents, comes from early childhood that says, I'm not good enough. I'm not good enough to have this or be this or feel good or whatever the issue is. And when we can go through that, then we start to work the miracles in our lives.